So on the basis of method of construction, you have two types, right? Which are the two types? One, teacher. Two, standardized. Teacher made tests and standardized tests. So first, teacher made tests. So there are no explicit rules for making these tests. No explicit rules anywhere as to how these tests are to be created. The main advantage of these tests is that it will be very easy to bring out any individual differences that might exist amongst the children or the students. Why? Because based on the requirement, you can, create a test. So easy to bring out any individual differences that might exist. In-depth understanding of the psychological constructs is possible of a particular person. So in-depth understanding of a person and his traits is possible. Okay. On the other hand, you have the standardized tests. So standardized tests are the ones which follow certain criterion. They follow certain criterion or conditions. There are some conditions that are to be met in order to be called a standardized test. First, there should be a very well-defined scoring system. Scoring system. A very well-defined scoring system. It should be clearly laid out. So this score to this score, right? For this particular item, how much score? On what basis you are supposed to give the scores? That should be clearly laid down. That is the first thing. Second, there should be an order in which items will be presented in the test. Order of item presentation. There should be an order in item presentation. Done. So you cannot change the order in a standardized test. Next, how the test should be given, as in administration of the test. The rules for the administration of the test should be clearly laid down. As in, when the test should be conducted, where it should be conducted, under what conditions it should be conducted. Okay. When the instructions should be given, what instructions, and all that. Test administration related. So regarding this, clear details have to be laid down. Next, items. Items should be clearly worded They should be clearly worded. There should be no ambiguity. Right? Next. There should be satisfactory level of reliability in the test and validity. Satisfactory level of reliability and validity. What is the satisfactory level of reliability and validity? We'll learn about it in the next part. So usually a test with a reliability score of 0.7 or above is generally considered to be the satisfactory level for reliability. Okay. A standardized test will have the norms, which are satisfactory, and the norms should be easily available. They have norms and they should be available. Finally, the fairness of correct answer. So an answer is said to be correct in the test. So basically, in a test, there's a question. For the question, the test maker has decided that A is the answer. Whether A is the true answer or not, that also has to be established. The fairness of the right answer can be established through what is known as item analysis, through a procedure called item analysis. And this must be established. Whether the answers that have been chosen in the test are fair enough or not has to be established. And that can be established through a procedure called what? Item analysis. So if the test has all these things, then we say what? It's a standardized test. So first, scoring system, order, administration, items, reliability and validity, norms, fairness of the right answer. Then we say it is a standardized test. Clear? Next. What is the next one? On the basis of the content of the items and the language used. So degree of language. To what extent language has been used in the test? You have verbal tests, non-verbal tests, three, performance tests, four, non-language tests. Performance tests and non-language tests. Verbal tests. So language is used here in verbal tests in order to understand the instructions, in order to give the instructions, in order to understand the instructions, language is used. In order to comprehend the test items, language is used. In order to answer the test items, language is used. So, in order to understand instructions, comprehend the test items, and answer, language is used in all the three. Such tests are called verbal tests. So, heavy dependence on language. The second, in this case, only to make the person understand the instructions. For the purposes of instructions only, language is used. To comprehend the items, no language used. To answer also, language is not required. Just to give the instructions, language is used. Otherwise, there is no usage of language in these tests. What about a performance test? Maximum effort to not use language in whatsoever manner. Example, motor coordination test. For performance test, motor coordination test. Motor coordination test. There is one more. Stromberg's finger dexterity test. Finger dexterity. How well a person is able to, use the fingers, how proficiently. Stromberg's finger dexterity test. In non-language tests, absolutely no use of language. Like the Alexander pass along test. Alexander pass along test. These are just the example. You need not know the details of these tests. Just know the name of the test. In fact, all your non-language tests are performance tests only. Okay, all your non-language tests are performance tests only. So in performance tests, to some extent, maybe somewhere language is used, but in non-language tests, absolutely there is no use of language. Elimination of language usage. Next. Construction of a psychological test, right? So today we are probably going to have a shorter class. So our target is to finish reliability, and let's see if validity can be taken up to it today or not. It's going to be a shorter version. Okay, what are the steps in construction of a psychological test? The first step is the planning of the test. is planning. Planning of the test. See, any psychological test, it has some aims. What are the aims of a psychological test? So even before we go to the steps, let's see the aims. The first aim of a psychological test is to establish a functional relationship between the variables that are associated with a psychological construct. Variables that are associated with a psychological construct. Say, for example, what is the relationship of a variable like emotionality with personality, which is a psychological construct? Right? So what is the relationship between emotionality is one of the variable. Its relationship to a psychological construct like personality. This is a psychological construct. What is the relationship? What is the functional relationship? Understood? Or what is the impact of memory? Memory now becomes a variable. On another psychological construct like thinking. What is the relationship? Does memory have an impact on thinking? Yes, no. What kind of? So this is the first aim of a psychological test. So to establish a functional relationship between various variables related to a psychological construct. Second, to represent a defined universe of content. To represent a defined universe of content. So what does this mean? So when we say universe of content, it is like syllabus. Okay. So when we speak about a test, the test has to measure what? The relationship between memory and thinking. Let's suppose there are two variables, right? So it has to first ask questions related to memory. It has to ask questions related to thinking, the relationship between the two. So questions related to that have to be formed. Now, apart from memory, what else affects thinking? Learning affects thinking. Forgetting affects thinking. There are multiple variables. This is the universe of content. This is the syllabus. Okay. What is the universe of content? Universe of content is nothing but it is like syllabus related to what? The psychological construct under investigation. Right? So there is a psychological construct about which we are developing a test. Related to that, there are multiple variables. Now, the test should be in such a manner, it should represent all those variables. The question should represent all those variables. So it is used to represent a defined universe of content related to that psychological construct. This is the second. Done. And finally, a test's aim is to measure a psychological trait. Measure a psychological trait or a psychological construct. We try to measure it. So first, using the psychological test, we get to understand the relationship between various variables which are related to a psychological construct. Second, when we look at the test, we also see that it is representation of some universe of content related to that psychological trait. Thirdly, we can measure the psychological trait itself. We can quantify, right? We can give a number using the psychological test. So these are the three aims of psychological test. Now, coming to the planning of the test. Coming to the planning of the test. First, you have to define the broad objectives and the specific objectives of the test. Why are you conducting the test? A specific objective can be, I want to know about the intelligence levels of this classroom, the students in the classroom. Broader objective can be, broader objective, after knowing the intelligence, I want to create a curriculum accordingly. That is a broader objective. Understood? So clearly define the specific and the broader objectives of the test that is being conducted, or that test that is being prepared. Second, what is the probable length of the test? As in, how many questions are you planning to include in the test? Third, what is the time duration of the test? This is probable length, the number of questions. Here it's about the time, number of hours, minutes. How many hours are you planning to prepare the test for? Four, what is the nature of items you are planning to use? What is the nature of questions you're planning to use? As in, is it going to be verbal? Is it going to be non-verbal questions? Is it going to be objective type, or is it going to be essay type? The nature of questions. Next, what is the method of sampling you are going to use? Method of sampling. What does this mean? Once you have created a test, you have to, try this test on certain people. That set of people is called sample. So how do you select this sample? Are you going to select these people from one classroom only? Or are you going to select the people from different classrooms of the same school, or different sections of the same class of the same school? Or is it going to be, I will pick 100 students, but these 100 students are going to be from different schools, 100 different schools? Or are they going to be from the same city? There are 10 schools. From each school, I am going to pick 10 students? How will the sampling be? So a sample is nothing but representative population. Which is going to take the test. So it's like the trial test. It is for the trial. So based on how they score, right? Whatever scores they take, that will be taken as an average. They will take an average of it, and that will be set as a norm later. That itself will become the norm later. Okay. So what method of sampling are we going to use? So is it going to be random selection? Okay. Or otherwise? 6. What will be the degree of difficulty of items? Will all the questions be moderately difficult, or are they going to be easy to difficult? One easy, one difficult, one easy, one difficult. So how is it going to be? And finally, arrangements for preliminary tryout, preliminary tryouts, and final trials, or final trial administration. Final trial administration, preliminary tryouts or experimental tryouts, and final trial administration. This is about to check whether the test is working or not. You have to, do some tests with the sample population. So where will you plan the test? Is it going to be some, school setting, or is it going to be some, hall you are going to book? What is it? This thing. So these are what? These are all. Is it going to be some lab which you are going to select? Right? So these are all the planning. So planning for construction. The next step is item writing. Once the plan is ready, okay, this is what I need. These are the things. The next step is item writing. So what is an item? It's a question. It is the lowest common denominator of the test. It is the lowest common denominator of the test. It is the lowest unit of the test that can be scored. It cannot be further broken down into smaller pieces. So when you look at the test, this is the lowest common denominator. You can't break it down into smaller pieces. So what are the characteristics of a good item? Characteristics of a good item. So as we know already, the item should have moderate level of difficulty. Moderate level of difficulty. 2, phrasing of the item should be in such a manner so that it does not create any ambiguity. It should not create any confusion. 3, it should measure. It should measure significant aspects of testy's understanding. Should be able to measure significant aspects of testy's understanding. Items should not be interlocked. What does this mean? Interlocked. It means they should not be interlocked. It means in order to answer the next question, right, it should not become essential for you to know the meaning of the previous question. So to answer question number 5, if understanding of question number 4 also is required, then there is interlocking. Understood? Say for example, in your prelims examination, you don't have this interlocking. But in CSAT paper, you have this interlocking. Right? So passage questions, or for that matter, you have some of the questions where 2 questions ensue. Right? Instructions will be on the top. Right? There is interlocking then. Yes? Next. Items should not encourage any kind of response bias. It should not encourage response bias in the sense, the moment you look at the question, sometimes phrasing of the question will be in such a manner that you'll have a response bias. For example, two sentences or 2 instances of phrasing. A vehicle met with an accident in which 2 vehicles, right, collided with each other. Right? So this is one statement. What do you say about it? Okay. In another statement, 2 vehicles approached each other, right? And in the accident that ensued, significant damages were made. Now, how will you react to this? The reactions you are going to give are going to be completely different. So in the one case, I told it's just a collision. In the other case, I also spoke about some damages. Just because of this framing or phrasing, the responses that I am going to get will be different. Understood? So your questions should not evoke any response bias. It has to do with the wording, the choosing of the words. Right? Instead of saying the 2 communities clashed, you put the word there was a riot. Right? Now automatically the meaning changes. So instead of calling it a clash, you called it as a riot. So it was not a riot, you just said, it can lead to a riot. right? The environment look like, there's going to be rioting. The moment you add this word, it evokes a different response altogether. So what is this? The item should not encourage response bias. So it has to be careful usage of words while preparing the items. And finally, they should have high discriminatory power. High discriminatory power. What does this mean? High discriminatory power? High discriminatory power. If a person gets the question right, it means he has good memory. If the person gets the question wrong, it means his memory is not good. Not so good memory. Whether the question has the ability to discriminate like this, is it able to differentiate a person who has good memory from a person who does not have good memory? If the question is not able to do it, say for example, a person does not have good memory, he is also able to answer. A person has good memory, he is also able to answer. Now, does the question has discriminatory power? So the question is about testing what? Testing whether a person has good memory or not. If it is able to do it, then it has good discriminatory power. Otherwise, it does not. Understood? So that is your discriminatory power. Though the item should have high discriminatory power. Yes? Next. Item writing. What are the prerequisites? Item writing, prerequisites. So if good questions are to be created, what are the requirements? So it's an art. Item writing is an art. So it's like preparing questions for UPSC prelims. It's an art. So there are no set rules, no standard rules as to questions are supposed to be written only like this. So there are no set rules to guarantee. There are no set rules to guarantee. The writing of effective items. So much of it depends on the originality of the item writer, expertise of the item writer, ingenuity, of the item writer, ability to create his own stuff newly. It depends on this. So about the item writer. So these are the prerequisites. 1, knowledge and expertise about the subject matter. Knowledge and expertise on the subject matter on which the items are being written. 2, knowledge about the different types of items. Knowledge about the different types of items, as in MCQs, essay type, verbal, non-verbal, their strengths, weaknesses. Three, should be informed. He must be informed, or he must know, he must be knowledgeable about the subjects for whom the test is being created. He should be knowing about the subjects as well. So when you know who the testees are, who the test takers are, only then you will be able to create the questions accordingly. So knowing about the subjects is important. So when I say subjects, it means the test takers. Is it important to have a good hold on the language or not? Yes. So you must have a good command over the language. Must be capable of avoiding stereotypes. Must be capable of avoiding stereotypes. His biases, his or her biases. In item writing, he must be capable of that. Otherwise, his bias may force him to include some words, which will create what? Response bias. Yes. Next. Step 3. What is step 3? Administration. Administration. The other name for this is experimental tryout or preliminary administration. Preliminary administration or experimental tryout. Okay. So what happens in this stage? So first you planned everything. After that, the item writer came. This person has written what are all the questions that are to be present in a, let's say, a intelligence test. He has written all the questions. He has come up with all the questions, keeping in mind, okay, there should not be interlocking. There should not be ambiguity in the test items. So he has written the items. So he has written some 100 questions. Now, it has to be administered to a group of individuals. So, administering the test items to a group of target population, which is called the sample, to the sample population. This test will be given multiple times, right? For the same group, the test will be given multiple times. So based on what feedback we get in each test, we are going to make the modifications accordingly in the test. So in this, you have multiple types of tryout. Okay. What is the objective of this experimental tryout? Why do we have this tryout? Objectives. What are the objectives of these tryouts? One, to identify any weaknesses, inadequacies, or ambiguities in the test items. If there are any, we come to understand. Second, weakness, ambiguity, or inadequacy. So some questions will be like, not enough information is there. Some question will be like, there's confusion. Some question is weak. It is not able to actually, give any discriminatory effect. Next, the other objective is to determine the validity of each test item. You can also determine the reasonable time limit. What can be the appropriate length? Initially, you thought 200 questions. It was taking almost 8 hours to complete the test. Now you understand, okay, 200 questions are not required. You can also determine the degree of difficulty. While preparing the test, constructing the test, it's an expert who created. For him, the test might look very easy, but when the test was given, then he understood, or the test administrator understood, okay, most of the questions are difficult. Next, can remove overlapping items. So it's like there are 100 students, 100 people who took the test. Out of 100 people, they have got first question. Whosoever have got first question right have got 100 question right also. It means there is a significant overlap between what the meaning of question number 1 is giving, the same meaning 101. So there is no need of having both the questions. Remove. Right? So out of 100 people, 80 people got first one right. They also got 100th one right, or 80th one right, which means both mean the same overlapping content or overlapping items. So you can remove one of them and replace it with a new test, new question. You can determine the discriminatory ability of each item. Which are all the items which have the ability to discriminate? Which are the ones which do not have the ability to discriminate? You'll be able to identify. So, in order for doing these things, you cannot do all of these things in one go. So, what you have to do is, according to Conrad, you're supposed to have 3 levels of testing. The first level is called preliminary tryout. First level is known as preliminary tryout. Second, tryout proper. Tryout proper. Final trial administration. Final trial administration. In this one, the main aim, the changes or the main things that are focus include, are there any changes we need to make in instructions? Whether the instructions are proper or not. Very blatant mistakes or confusions in items can be identified in this stage. Just in one reading itself, you come to understand, okay, it's like 4 options are to be present. There are only 3 options in one question. Such gross ambiguities or gross mistakes. Administrative problems. Like you thought of conducting the test for 100, there are only 70 seats put. So what are these? In preliminary tryout, you come to understand, okay, these are the problems we may face. And accordingly, you make the modifications. So basic mistakes, basic problems of the test will be identified where? In preliminary tryout itself. After these things are corrected, you administer the test again after making all these changes if there are any. In this level, it is called tryout proper. In this level, one of the most important thing that will be done is known as item analysis. In this stage, item analysis is done. Item analysis is a procedure which helps us tell whether about every item, it gives us some information regarding why that particular item has functioned well or has not functioned well. How well has it functioned, basically. So the question paper or the test is to measure the intelligence, whether this question has measured intelligence or not. To what extent this question has the ability to measure intelligence. Understood? So item analysis is a procedure which gives the details about each item, whether they have the ability to measure, the intended quality or not. So if they're not measuring, what can be done? What changes are to be made? You get to understand that. Item analysis helps us finalize the items that are to be kept in the test. It will give us an idea about the distractors that may be present in the items. We get to know the discriminatory power of each item. Okay. We can also identify clearly the difficulty level of each item. Clearly identify the difficulty level of each item. Done. Item analysis can be done on the basis of the inputs provided by experts, or it can be on the basis of what the scores of the test takers. Both is possible. So based on the inputs given by the experts or on the basis of the scores of the test takers. On both bases, you can do the item analysis. It's as good as saying there was a question on environment. Was it difficult, easy, moderate? Who decides it? It can be the expert or it can be the test taker. So test taker scores. If most of the students have got the question right, then it is an easy question. If most of the people who have taken the test have gotten it wrong, it's a difficult question. So item analysis can be done either using an expert's input or the scores of a test taker scores. The final trial, administration. This is done after the first two trials. This is done, and this is going to be like a dress rehearsal. If there are any defects in the test which have gone unnoticed, they may be detected in this stage. They can be detected in this final stage. So it's like a dress rehearsal. So whatever changes are required, whatever problems are there in the test, we got to know here itself. If still there are any, to know them, you do one final trial, administration. Once the results come out of this, if this trial shows no ambiguities, no discrepancies in the test items, after this, there will be no changes allowed in the test. So this will be the final trial. After this, no changes are allowed. No, it's only the scores that matter of the test takers. They take the opinion of the test takers, especially in terms of instructions, whether they understood the instructions properly or not. Instructions are given in the test, whether the test takers understood the instructions properly or not. Right? The final trial administration serves one more purpose. It tells us how effective the test could be when the test is actually conducted, when the test is actually given to the intended population. To the intended population. Done? So this is about preliminary tryout or experimental tryouts. So 3 levels: pre-tryout, gross mistakes if there are any, tryout proper where item analysis is done, and final trial administration if something has gone unnoticed for that purpose. Okay. Now, reliability. reliability of the final test. It refers to consistency and stability. It refers to consistency and stability of a test in measuring what it intends to measure, over a period of time. Simply put, if the test is conducted under same conditions, if the test is administered or conducted under same conditions on the same set of subjects, it should yield same results. Okay. So how do we check reliability? There are different ways of checking reliability. One of the first ways to check reliability is test, retest reliability. Test, retest reliability. Okay. So what is this? So whatever the statement said is the same. Test, retest reliability is about, it measures consistency of test, measures consistency of test results over time. If a test is reliable, it should produce similar outcomes. It should produce similar outcomes when the same individuals take the test. Okay. So there is something called as reliability coefficient, test retest reliability coefficient. So it measures the stability of the scores. Reliability coefficient, test retest reliability coefficient. All it measures is the correlation between the test scores which has been administered, a test which has been administered at two different points in time. So this coefficient varies between 0 to 1. Right? If the coefficient is 0.9, it means test was given at 0.1, test was given at 0.2. The scores, average scores of the people who took the test was 90. Here, the average scores of the people who took the test, same people who took the test, was somewhere around, let's say, 85. Not much of a difference. It means there is a lot of correlation between the test scores, right? Then what do we say? High correlation coefficient, right? Then reliability is higher. Whenever the number is closer to 1, if the correlation is, the value is closer to 1, it means high reliability. What if the test scores are like this, 90 yahan pe, 60 yahan pe? There's a lot of difference. Yes, there's a lot of difference, which means the coefficient will fall, right? Will be less than 0.5. Next. What are the advantages of test-retest reliability? Useful to determine, it is useful to determine whether a test provides stable results, whether a test provides stable results across time. It will be useful, such tests, with high reliability, with high test-retest reliability, are especially important, for constructs like intelligence and personality, which do not change over a period of time. Does intelligence change too much for an individual? No. Does personality change too much for an individual? No. Which means the test on intelligence and personality should be in such a manner that they should be able to yield the same result. It means such tests which are related to personality and intelligence should have high what reliability? Test-retest reliability should be high. Okay. So such tests should have test-retest reliability to be higher. What are the limitations? The longer the time gap between the two tests, test and retest, longer the time gap, the more likely the results may be influenced. The more likely results may be influenced by changes in the individual, like learning, mood, life events. Because of these things, in the retest, the scores might be different. Second limitation. If the time gap is too small, the individuals may remember the items clearly and may perform better. Understood? So this is the problem with test-retest. So the individual may remember the items clearly and perform better. Or if the time gap is too much, the person might have forgotten the items. But what is the problem? He might have learned so many things in his life by then. Right? So he has learned so many things. His memory has changed. Certain life events have happened. Because of these things, his answers might be different. Because of which, what? The reliability will not be there for the test. just because the person gave a different answers. So test reliability, this is the problem. There is another type, inter-rater reliability. We can also check inter-rater reliability. Inter-rater, rater. Inter-rater reliability. This form of reliability becomes important whenever the items or whenever the scoring involves subjective judgments. Whenever there is what? Whenever there is subjective judgment involved in scoring. It assesses the level of agreement between different raters. When we say there is high inter-rater reliability coefficient, when we say there is high inter-rater reliability coefficient, all it means is that there is a greater agreement in the scores awarded, greater agreement in the scores awarded by two or more raters. Okay. So it's as good as saying your answer paper has been evaluated by me and another faculty. If both of them give the same score, right? It means what? There is high inter-rater reliability coefficient. There is high inter-rater reliability. So this coefficient of 0.85 is considered to be really good reliability. For the first one, 0.9 is considered to be really good. This is 0.85, means high level of agreement between the raters. Advantages of this style. If a test has high inter-rater reliability, what does it mean? First, it reduces subjective bias. It reduces subjective bias. Which one? Inter-rater reliability. Yes, inter-rater reliability is practical. For example, it's as good as saying you go to a doctor, you get diagnosed for something, right? You go to another doctor, get diagnosed for something. If both of them say the same thing, reliability is higher or not? Higher reliability. So what is this? Inter-rater. So it reduces subjective bias. So for a particular test, if say for example, you got a blood test done in one place, you got a blood test done in another place. If both of them give the same result, the test that has been conducted, the test has higher inter-rater reliability. Understood? So it reduces subjective bias and it increases objectivity. So it increases confidence in scoring. It increases confidence in the scoring and interpretation of tests. Limitation, it is highly training dependent. The scorers should be highly trained. Further, there can be rate or variability. In what sense? In selection of criterion. Say, for example, essay. You wrote an essay and gave it to me. I gave you 80 out of 125. The other person also gave 80. I gave you 80 because of the language that is chosen. I gave you 80 because of certain dimensions you have used. The other person gave you 80 not because of these two reasons. That person gave you 80 because of the organization of the essay. What criterion I use in order to score might be different. So, rate or variability with regard to criterion used to score will always be a subjective area. Understood? Done. This is about inter-rater reliability. Next. Parallel forms reliability. Parallel forms. So this is just about, it is also like test retest reliability itself. The only difference is in a test retest reliability, you gave one test now, the same test is given after a period of time. In this test, in this parallel forms reliability, what will be done is you give a test 1, later you give a test which is similar to T1. The items in test 2 will be similar to T1, but not the same items. So first question is on arithmetic. Here also first question is on arithmetic. First question is on addition. Here also it is addition, but the numbers are different. It's a similar test, not the same test. What is this known as? Parallel forms. If a person or if the group of people score same level of scores in both the tests, then we say parallel forms reliability is higher. The items are not exactly the same. They are different items, but they are similar items. So it assesses the consistency of results across different versions of the same test. If individuals score similarly on both forms, it indicates high parallel form reliability. Okay. What are the advantages? Advantages are that whenever there is a need to administer different forms of the same test, it can be very useful. It can help you eliminate practice effect. Practice and memory effect can be eliminated. So they can't recall the specific questions. Why? Because it is similar question, not the same question. What is the problem with this type of reliability? Trying to establish such a kind of reliability, the main problem is the complexity, test development complexity. So creating two equivalent forms of tests is very difficult. Right? Creating content equivalence, exactly similar items, might become difficult. Next. Internal consistency. Next is internal consistency or internal reliability. And finally, you have split half. Split half reliability. Internal reliability refers to the consistency within the test itself. Internal reliability measures whether all parts of the test, contribute equally. That all parts of the test contribute equally to overall score. We say the test is internally consistent if all items measure same construct. All the items measure the same construct. We say there is high internal consistency. The coefficient or the measure we use to check this is called internal consistency coefficient or coefficient of homogeneity, which is measured by Cronbach's alpha. Cronbach's alpha. It's a measurement of homogeneity. It's a coefficient. That's it. Okay. But see, this is a good thing. Whether items are using this reliability, it's just like there is question number 1, question number 2, question number 3, question number 4, question number 5. If question 1 is measuring something, let's say intelligence, if question 2 is also measuring intelligence to the same level, so question 1 measures intelligence up to a level of 2% of intelligence it is measuring. If this also measures 2% of intelligence, another 2% of intelligence, Question 3 measures another 2% of intelligence. There is high consistency. Right? All of them are contributing almost equally to the measurement. And they are all measuring what? Intelligence only. Right? We say there is high consistency. But the problem arises when intelligence is not such a simple construct. Intelligence has many aspects to it. Yes, intelligence is about making decisions, decision making. Intelligence is about arithmetic. Intelligence is about your ability to reason. Now, what if one question is related to measurement of decision making and it contributes only 1% to the measurement of intelligence? The other one is related to arithmetic and it contributes to 3% of the measurement of intelligence. Now, if that is the case, then establishing internal reliability does not make any sense. Yes? So, internal reliability, the advantage is that in one administration itself, internal consistency can be assessed. Right? In just one test itself, you can see how much reliability is there internally. Whether they are measuring intelligence or whether they are measuring memory, you can get it. This reliability can measure item cohesiveness. That is, whether they measure the same construct or not. That can be understood. Limitation. Such consistency, establishing such consistency will not be useful if the tests are trying to measure multiple constructs at the same time. Just think about it. If high internal consistency is something which is desirable and you want to measure a construct like personality, personality is about intelligence of a person, it's about the motivation of a person, it's about the emotional emotional balance of a person. So it's about many things. It's about his memory, it's about his attitudes. So a test created on personality will have items measuring all these things. Now when we try to have what? Internal consistency, the internal consistency will be very low. But if we want very high internal consistency for this test, then the test will not serve any purpose. Understood? So we are supposed to have a test which is going to have high internal consistency only when the psychological construct that is being measured is simple. Whenever the psychological constructs are complex, then we can't have high internal consistency. It's not possible. Right? Next. Finally, you have the split half reliability. In this, the test is divided into two halves. Two equal halves. Two equal halves. And now, if both the halves produce similar scores, then the test is considered reliable. It is simple and quick. Requires only one test. See, in inter-rater, what about it? One test only, but multiple people rate it. Test retest, two tests. Parallel forms, two tests. Internal reliability, one test. Split half, one test. Limitation. What if when you split the test, the items are unevenly distributed? One part of the test has very difficult items, the other part has very simple items. And this type of testing or reliability test can be done only for lengthy tests, not the small tests. So if the test has only 20 questions, you can't split it into 10 and do the split half method. Okay. If any of these reliabilities, see, when you take a particular test, a test can be tested. Say, for example, what was the last step, previous step? What was the previous step? Experimental tryout mein last mein you administered the test, the final administration. After the final administration, what do you do? After the final administration, you check the reliability of the test. So you gave the test. After giving the test, you check for reliability. Which reliability do you check for? You check for test retest reliability. How do you check the test retest reliability? One test was already given, the final test, and then after some time again you give the same test to the same set of people. If they score the same level of scores, we say there is test retest reliability which is high. And then inter-rater reliability, you got the scores, right? And if the same test results are given to another person, how will the other person score? Especially it is useful in what type of tests? Subjective tests, if the items are subjective. Third, parallel form. In this, what will you do? You'll not give the same test, similar type of questions. Alternate form is created of the test. And if the people score the same scores in the alternate form as well, we say there is parallel forms reliability. Yes? So what is this? This is how we check the reliability. There are 5 types of reliability that can be checked. Different kinds of tests will require different kinds of reliability to be checked. In any case, if the reliability coefficient is less than 0.7, if the reliability coefficient is less than 0.7, we say there is weak reliability. We say there is weak reliability. Understood? Done? Next. Factors that affect reliability. Factors that affect reliability. There are internal factors and external factors. Internal and external factors. First, we'll look at the internal factors that affect reliability. Test length. Longer tests tend to be more reliable. Longer tests tend to be more reliable. because they provide a larger number of items. A larger number of items, reducing the impact of random errors. So if you make a mistake, that can be corrected in the other question. You give a wrong answer by mistake. If there are only 5 questions and you give a wrong answer in 2, so your score is like, out of 5, you got 3 correct. 2 wrongs you did because of errors. It's an error. What is your percentage score here? What is the percentage? 60%, 60 odd percent, right? On the other hand, you have 100 questions. How many errors can you make? Probably some 4 errors you will make. So which means your score is 96. So that's a lot of difference. Whenever there are lengthy tests, the errors that might be committed will be relatively lesser in percentage terms. That is why lengthy tests are more reliable. Okay. Shorter tests may have low reliability, due to insufficient item coverage as well. Insufficient item coverage as well. Okay. Next, item quality. When I say internal factors, what are these? Factors within the test. These are factors within the test. Second is item quality. If the items are written poorly and if they have ambiguity, will the reliability increase or decrease? The reliability will decrease automatically. So because they get confused, because the test takers get confused, they give random answers. Inconsistent responses can be there. Okay. So inconsistent responses means low reliability. 3, item homogeneity. Item homogeneity. What is item homogeneity? Same type of questions. If they measure the same construct, if they measure the same underlying construct consistently, it will increase reliability for sure. Internal reliability will increase. However, if the items measure different items of the same construct or different aspects of same construct, it may decrease internal consistency. Remember that internal consistency we spoke of? So if there are same type of items, homogeneity in items, they measure the same underlying construct, and they also contribute to the same level of scores. Each item contribute to same level of scores. Then internal consistency is high. On the other hand, while the items are, while the questions are homogeneous, but when you look at the questions, these questions are measuring different things. They are same type of questions, but they are measuring different things. Then will there be internal consistency? No, there'll not be internal consistency. Internal consistency will drop. Next, test format. If there is a consistent test format, then reliability will be higher. So one time you gave essay test, the other time you gave MCQs. Then there will be inconsistent responses, because of which reliability will drop. So inconsistent scoring and confusion in the test takers. Finally, scoring procedures. Standardized scoring system increases reliability, because this time if you have used a scoring system, if you use the same scoring system next time, it increases the reliability. You may end up getting the same scores. If the scoring system itself is changed, there is no chance you are going to get the same scores. Right? This is about scoring procedures. So test format and scoring procedure. So these are related to internal factors which can have an impact on reliability of the test. External factors. So this is outside the test. This is related to testing environment. Testing environment. If there is, this is about temperature, noise, where the test is being taken. It may distract the test taker's concentration, motivation. So that is the first one, testing environment. Can have external distractions like temperature, noise, space. Impacting the performance and concentration. Impacting the performance and concentration. So first time he took the test in a very quiet place. Second time the person is taking the test in a noisy place. Will there be reliability? You can't establish reliability. Right? You will not get reliability. You will not get consistency in this course. Second, there is test taker variables. Second, test taker variables. It is about the physiological and psychological state of a test taker. Which is about illness, the mood, the motivation, anxiety. So these are the different mood states, that is the psychological states of a person. How that person is feeling on that particular day will also affect his scores. This is not something related to the test. This is related to the test taker who is outside the test. So test means, what is there in the test items, instructions, all these things become a part of test. Anything outside the test paper will be external factors. Third, time interval between tests. Time interval between tests. So we have spoken about it already. If the time gap is too much, the person may have changed. If the time gap is too short, there is learning effect, memory effect. Cultural factors, cultural and language factors. It should not be too much or too less. We are just saying that it can have an impact. Language factors. The test items may contain cultural bias. Or in the instructions itself, there can be a bias. So this cultural bias in the instructions or the test is for that particular culture only. Yes. Otherwise, this is not a bias. For this particular culture, it became a bias. Otherwise, it is not a bias. Understood? So there might be cultural bias in the instructions, or it may be perceived as a bias in the instructions. There can be language barriers which can affect the comprehension. Okay. Done. Administration consistency. The timing of the test, instructions, interaction with the test takers by the test giver can all impact the test scores and likewise affect the test reliability. Okay, so these are all what? External factors, internal and external factors. So it's like we are just checking whether the test is going to be consistent or not. We have not yet given this test for public. Before giving the test to the public, or before making the test, psychological test, usable for general public or to be used by psychologists, you have to check the reliability of the test. So that is what is being done now. So when you look at the construction of a psychological test, the first step was planning. Second step was what? Item writing. Third step was preliminary tryouts, right? Experimental tryouts. And the fourth step is reliability. So you have tried this test on sample population, and after you have tried this test on the sample population, you got some scores. Yes, once you got the scores, whether these scores are reliable or not. Are these scores reliable or not? This is what you are testing. How to check whether these scores are reliable or not? How to check it? So what is reliability? It's about the stability of the test. If I give the test now, it gives the results. Later on, if I give the test, right? The same test if I give, or similar test if I give, will it give same results or not? That is all I am checking. What is this? This is a test of reliability. So there are different ways in which you can check the reliability. So what are the different ways? The 5 ways. Test retest reliability, internal consistency. Next, parallel forms reliability. Next, split half, right? And which is the one more? The last one. Split off. There is one more. Test retest. Inter-rater. There is one more, inter-rater reliability. So inter-rater reliability is not generally what will be asked in the examination. 4 are very important. Inter-rater is not so important. The other 4 are very important. So these are the different kinds of reliabilities that are checked for in any test, right? How much reliability is there in each of these? So of these, when you look at test retest reliability, so what is this about? What is test retest? So same test is given again after a period of time. Which is the other one? Inter-rater. Test is given. The scores, especially test, inter-rater reliability is checked for those tests which are subjective in nature. So inter-rater reliability is checked for those tests which are subjective in nature. If they are MCQ based, it is not useful. So in these tests, in this particular reliability, one test is given, scores by one rater is compared to the scores by another rater. If they match, then there is high reliability in the scoring pattern as well as the test. In the test items, there is high reliability, high consistency. What is the next one? Parallel forms. What do you do in parallel forms? In this, instead of using the same test and checking after some time, similar questions or similar items are created and the test is done. So scores are compared. If the scores match almost, then we say there is more parallel forms reliability. There is consistency in the test. So we can create multiple variations of this test and we can expect same results. For example, intelligence test is having high parallel forms reliability. It means what? The original intelligence test which is there, multiple forms of it can be created and you will get similar scores. Understood? So which means if you get score of 100 in one of the similar form test, it means you can trust that score. It has the same meaning as if a person gets score of 100 on a original test. It has the same meaning. What is the next test? Internal consistency. What is this about? It just checks whether this is the special one. This internal consistency is the special one. Internal consistency or internal reliability. What is this about? Whether the items, right, measure the same thing or not. If all the items measure the same thing and contribute equally to the scores, final score, then we say there is high internal consistency. But internal consistency is not always useful. If a test has very high internal consistency, it is useful for only those tests, those psychological tests, which is measuring only one construct. What if a psychological test aims to measure 5 constructs at a time? Then high internal consistency is not used. So more often than not, in psychological tests, we don't look for high internal consistency. We look for what? We look for high parallel forms consistency. We look for high inter-rater consistency. We look for high test retest consistency. So split half is a rather simple method. It's a fast method. to check the reliability of a test. How? You split the test into two halves and give the test to two separate groups maybe, or to the same group maybe. So if the group scores equal scores in both the tests, both halves of the test, then we say, okay, the test is reliable, it is consistent. Understood? So what is this known as? It is reliable. Did you understand? Online people, you have any doubt, you can ask me.
Sir,
Yes.
with respect to internal consistency, it can be done with multiple constructs also, right? If we have like suppose 20 questions and if there are 5 constructs that we have to find,
Okay.
if there are like
So
4
you're
sets
saying
of
that you have 20 questions and we are measuring 5 constructs.
yes,
Okay. Next.
and we have 4 sets of those 5 constructs.
4
Sets of those 5 constructs, like 4, like each question, each construct will have 4 questions.
Okay, each construct has 4 questions now. Okay. Okay, 4 questions each.
Yeah. So in this case, it will have high internal consistency rate.
So will it have high internal consistency or not? So there will be high internal consistency if we are considering the sections of the questions. If you consider each item separately, then there is no high internal consistency. Understood?
Yes, sir.
There is high internal consistency with respect to, sections. There is no high internal consistency with respect to questions only. See, if you consider each item to be separate, right, then there is less internal consistency. Why? Because there is a question number 1, right? What is its correlation with question number 5? Question number 1 is checking emotionality. Question number 5 is checking something else. What is the correlation you have? Not much. Understood? Between the sections, there will be high internal consistency. But between each question, individual question, there will be low internal consistency. Clear?
Yes,
Nitish?
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. So whenever we are looking for having a test which is trying to measure multiple dimensions of the same construct, right? Or if it is trying to measure different psychological constructs within the same test, we never try to get high internal consistency at an item level. We try to get high internal consistency section level. At a sectional level, we want to have high internal consistency. Clear? Yes? Anything else? Anything else? No? Okay. Next is validity. We'll just introduce validity today and we'll leave. You can be happy. Validity. So this is the next step. So validity in psychological testing means the degree to which the overall test measures what it intends to measure. Whether it is measuring the same thing it claims to measure. Whether it is measuring the same thing it claims to measure. What was reliability about? It was about consistency. It was about what? Consistency. It was about stability. So if I get some scores now using this test, will I get similar scores later as well? How stable will the scores be if I use this particular test? That was the worry of what? reliability. So there are 5 ways to check this reliability. Now the question is, we have created the test. The test is stable. If you get some score this time, you are going to get same score later as well. But now the question is whether it is measuring what it claimed to measure. So now I have come up with a test for personality or intelligence. My question now is whether it actually measures intelligence or not. Whether the test gave a result which is going to be matching the real intelligence or not. Now, validity ensures that the test measures the correct construct. Ensures that the test measures the correct construct. Can a test be reliable without being valid? Can a test be reliable without being valid? Can a test be reliable without being valid? As in, remember reliability? What is reliability? You got 80 here. Here also, if you get 80, it's done. There is reliability. The test has reliability. Retest reliability is there. If question 1, question 2, question 3 measure the same thing, there is internal consistency. There is internal reliability. If all the questions are measuring the same thing, there is internal reliability. Now, just having this reliability, can you say that? Can you give a guarantee that they are going to measure what they claim to measure? Not essentially. Yes or no? So, reliability, a test can have reliability, but may not have validity. A test can have reliability, but may not be valid, may not have validity. They may have consistency, but they may not have validity. On the other hand, if a test is valid, if a test has validity, it can be possible only if it has reliability too. It must have reliability too. So for it to be truly useful, for a test to be truly useful, it should be reliable and valid. Only then a test can be used. Understood? So consistency in the sense you get the same score. I'll give you a test. Right? You got 80. After some time, I gave the test again. You got the same score, 80. Is the test consistent? Yes. My aim was to measure intelligence, but the test actually measured not intelligence. It just measured your arithmetic ability. Your score is 80 now, later also 80. But did it measure intelligence? No. There is consistency, but there is no validity. Understood? Now, there are different kinds of validity. One, content validity. Content validity. Construct validity. Criterion related validity, criterion related validity, and 4, face validity. Content validity, construct validity, criterion related validity, face validity. Okay. First, content validity. Say, for example, if we are conducting a test on math, and if the test contains questions only related to geometry, is it called a math test? It is not called a math test. Now, is the test valid? Is the test valid? See, the aim of the test, is to check mathematical ability, math ability. But the test contains all the questions related only to geometry. The results of the test, are they valid? Validity of the results. High or low? It will be low. Why? All the concepts or all the dimensions of mathematical ability are not covered in the test. The content related to the concept, the content related to the construct are not covered. So, content validity refers to the extent to which a test covers all aspects of the construct. All aspects of the construct it aims to measure. So if we are talking about personality, related to personality, what are all the things that contribute to personality? So there is something called as 16PF. 16PF. 16 personality factors. If the test contains all the questions related to all the 16 personality factors, then we say what? The test is valid. The validity is higher. Then you have the big 5 theory related to personality. So 5 very basic traits which define personality. So all your personality tests today are related to these 5 dimensions, the big 5 dimensions, which means related to 10 aspects, there will be questions. If the test contains questions related to all these 10 aspects, now there will be what? High content validity. If not, low content validity. Yes, if one of the aspects is missing, validity goes down. Understood? Second, construct validity. Assesses whether the test, it assesses whether the test truly measures the theoretical construct. Truly measures the theoretical construct. It intends to measure. Means theoretical constructs. What does it mean? So what was this? There is a construct. What makes this construct? Based on that, whether the questions are there or not. This one is about, when we say theoretical construct, it's about if there is a established test already, or if there is a established theory already about, let's say, intelligence, if there is an established test already on intelligence, established theory about intelligence already, it is accepted widely. These tests are accepted widely. This test or theory is accepted widely. To what extent? To what extent does this new test cover all the aspects present in this? Okay. There is an established test. To what extent does it match the established test? To what extent does it match the established? Is it aligning with the established theory? The more it aligns with these things, if your test aligns more with these things, already established test or theory, we say there is convergent validity. What is there? High convergent validity is there. We say there is high convergence. If the alignment is more, we say there is high convergent validity. But sometimes it so happens there is no alignment with the established theory or the established test, but it is measuring the same construct. It is measuring the same construct. It is able to give, some inputs to the measurement of, let's say, intelligence. So intelligence, according to the established theory, is about problem solving, decision making, judgment. This is what it is about. This is established theory and the established tests say this. But now, our new test, which has been developed, psychological test, is measuring creativity as well. It is measuring creativity as well. It is not an aspect which is mentioned here, but this test is measuring. At the same time, it is giving an input like, okay, this also can be an aspect of intelligence. It is opening new avenues to the understanding. Such validity, which is away from established tests and established theory, such validity would be called as divergent validity. It is measuring intelligence itself, but aspects which are not established, which are not present in the established test or established theories, those aspects are also being covered. Then we say there is divergent validity. So there is a most widely accepted intelligence test called Stanford-Binet, SBIT, Stanford-Binet intelligence test. And then there is WISE, Wechsler's adult intelligence scale. These are the most widely used intelligence scales. I come up with a new test, XYZ. This test measures almost all the aspects that are there in these two tests. Right? So intelligence is equal to A, B, C, D, E, F. All these 6 put together is intelligence. Let's assume SBIT is measuring A, B. Voice is measuring B, D, and C. Let's suppose these things are being measured by what? SBIT and voice. Clear? Now my test XYZ is measuring A, B, C, D, E, and F. What happens now? A, B, C, D. There is convergent validity. What is intelligence about? E and F as well. They are not measuring, but my test is measuring. Is there divergent validity? Yes, there is divergent validity. Understood? Clear? Yes? Online people? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's your construct validity. So you have two types of construct validity. One is convergent and the other one is divergent. Next. Criterion related validity and face validity. We'll take it up in the next class. No. What happens is this one. How do you know? It is all based on the expert opinion. What they do is, it's not going to be one expert who is going to decide. It will be multiple experts. It will be going through multiple experts, right? The interpretation will be done by multiple experts, not one expert, right? It's never going to be one expert. So if somebody says something, there will be many more people who are going to validate it. They are going to check the veracity of it. Okay, they are going to check the truthfulness. Okay, fine. So you might ask, sir, if intelligence is equal to A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay, if it is equal to these many things, why there are only some established theories? An established theory may speak about only A, B, and D. There is another established theory which speaks about C, B, D, and E. There is another established theory which speaks about D, E, and F only. When I say this, all I mean to say is this established theory is coming from behaviorist school. This established theory is coming from psychoanalysis. This established theory is coming from humanist school or the cognitivist school. So different schools have said different things about each psychological construct. By adding all these things, we come up with a definition for a psychological construct. So we are not completely denying what these schools are saying, but the school alone, one theory alone cannot explain what a psychological construct is. So that is why when we mix all together, a psychological construct will have many elements in it. Yes? Done. So criterion related validity and face validity, we are going to learn it in the next class. Okay. Go rewatch the video once again of today's class, right? And only these two are there, and that too it is not difficult. Criterion related and face validity, they are very simple. After this, there's nothing in this particular chapter, right? After this, not much is left. Okay. All right. Shall we leave? Yes. All right. Thank you, online people. Thank you. You need the notes, no? Development of human behavior, right? So it will be shared. It will be shared by the end of the day. Okay. Thank you.